I end up having the fibroids, and God, the higher power, just start talking to me and giving me all this information, and I end up healing it. So it was in my womb, a fibroid, which is I think like a tumor, and a lot of women, especially Black women, get it. And I realized that the body truly does keep the score. So it's like from a lot of suppressed emotions, because I was just in survival mode for a very long time. And it just caught up to me in my womb space. It just taught me so much about being still and really connecting with the divine versus that go mentality, and really feeling my feelings. Because the book, The Body Keeps the Score, I love that title because it really does, like when you don't deal with your emotions, it manifests into like physical, sometimes illness, sometimes like fibroids for people. And I healed it really fast because of the awareness and the stillness that I was able to get to. So some of the things I did, I got into Ho'oponopono, the meditation. The doctor said be raw food cleanse, and it was just really natural. And the doctors were like, what did you do? And I'm like, what y'all didn't do? Like, it looked like God went into my womb and took the fibroid out and it was gone. And they're like, what happened? You were having issues with your fallopian tube. They wanted to give me a hysterectomy, and I just refused to claim that for myself. And in a matter of 5 days, it was completely gone.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and it was amazing because I was one of those people who would run to the doctors, but it wasn't making any sense what they were doing. They were trying to give me medicine. I'm like, this has nothing to do with what I have going on. They were treating me like I was a guinea pig. And each step, I didn't get the whole picture of what I needed to do, but each step I just start getting information from the divine. Okay, start eating this, like drink spring water, do V-steams, meditate. I learned about Queen Afua. I would tell myself my womb is healed and so is my life. That was one of the mantras that I used. Yeah, so I just started getting introduced to so many different things, tinctures and herbs. So that's when I was like, oh wow, I'm super powerful. And I did my first mushroom trip around that time. Accidentally took 5 grams and went what I thought was like space or the bottom of the ocean or the womb. I'm not sure. It was somewhere really dark and warm and comfortable. Yeah, I was just in space, like, and I got the message that all I needed to do was be unconditional love, compassionate, and present with myself. And so for this whole trip was probably like 10 hours. I just kept asking the divine, so I don't have to do this? I don't have to do this? And they were like, no, you just have to be unconditional love, compassionate, and present.
What's good, family? Welcome to another episode of the Dharma Glow podcast. I'm here with Keneecha.
Yes.
We've been in a community for a few years now, and we've been trying to get this popping for a minute, but it finally aligned today. And everything is always in divine timing because we've been studying these Christ teachings that I came across on YouTube that are outside of the scope of traditional Christian teachings, but feel like very deeply heart-centered. And we've just been expanding in them for the past 6 months. So we just wanted to come and talk about our experience. She also is a new mother for the second time, so she has a lot of life to share, to talk about. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. This is like my favorite conversation of the year. I tell everyone about this, so I'm excited to dive deep.
Ashe. If you're in our Atlanta community, then I'm sure you know who Keneecha is and her partner Olu and their children. But if you're new, I always like to give people the opportunity to tell their life story in 3 minutes and 33 seconds.
3 minutes, 33.
So you were born where, and then what's your story?
Okay, I was born here in Atlanta. I am 33 years old, be 34 this year. So it's just such a beautiful experience to be like studying this Christ consciousness in my 33rd year of life. I have 2 children, so I'm a full-time mom. I had my first son when I was 16 years old, and he is now 17. He'll be 18 in December. And I have a new baby. He's 2 months. His name is Ra, and he's just truly a joy. So we're really enjoying that. I graduated from college, did the things, did work corporate for a long time, and it just wasn't resonating for me. So I've been out of corporate for about 6 years now as a good stepping stone for me out of corporate. I was helping my oldest son's family's business. The True Products is a Black-owned laundry detergent. And I did that for a few years, and it helped me get familiar with a lot of the Atlanta community. And in that, I decided that, you know what, I feel like this was a good stepping stone for me, but it's time for me to live fully in my purpose. And I stopped doing that to figure out what it was that I truly wanted to do. And took a year to rest and got a lot of creative ideas. So I started doing these events called Soul Smile, which was pretty much when I healed my womb in 2020 of fibroids. I wanted to alchemize an experience where people could learn how to connect with their inner selves, but in community and have fun with it. Bring your inner child out. It's for the whole family. So started doing that, started writing books that will be coming out pretty soon. And yeah, and the rest is just infinity. Yeah, so I like to call myself like a true vessel of God. At this point, I've just surrendered to the flow, and it feels really good. It feels really good.
Yeah, so tell me again, you were born
here in Atlanta.
And at what point did you feel like you tapped into this awareness where you wanted to be a vessel and just give your life more to being of service and a pure channel? What were the circumstances that brought that about?
So I feel like it's always been there, and I was just running from it for a long time. So when I quit corporate, my intention was to do it, but I got the opportunity to sell laundry detergent and just lost that. And then it got to a point where it was just so loud. When I healed my womb at 30, never thought that I would get fibroids. I thought I had a good diet, lifestyle and everything, and I end up having the fibroids, and God, the higher power, just start talking to me and giving me all this information, and I end up healing it. And
could you go more into what that is and
so fibroids,
who it affects mostly?
Yeah, so it was in my womb, a fibroid, which is I think like a tumor. And a lot of women, especially Black women, get it. And I realized that the body truly does keep the score. So it's like from a lot of suppressed emotions, because I was just in survival mode for a very long time. And it just caught up to me in my womb space. So it just taught me so much about being still and really connecting with the divine versus that go mentality, and really feeling my feelings. Because the book, The Body Keeps the Score, I love that title because it really does, like when you don't deal with your emotions, it manifests into like physical, sometimes illness, sometimes like fibroids for people. And I healed it really fast because of the awareness and the stillness that I was able to get to. So some of the things I did, I got into Ho'oponopono, the meditation, the Dr. Sebi raw food cleanse, and what else did I do? I did a few things, but it was just really natural. And the doctors were like, what did you do? And I'm like, what y'all didn't do? Like, it looked like God went into my womb and took the fibroid out and it was gone. And they're like, what happened? Your womb was like, you were having issues with your fallopian tube. They wanted to give me a hysterectomy, and I just refused to claim that for myself. And in the matter of 5 days, it was completely gone.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it was a combination of changing your diet and emotional processing, forgiveness, and I guess self-belief, since you weren't willing to take on a traditional Western projection of what was wrong and how to fix it.
Yeah, and it was amazing because like I was one of those people who would run to the doctors and everything, but it wasn't making any sense what they were doing. They're trying to give me medicine. I'm like, this has nothing to do with what I have going on. It's like they were like treating me like I was a guinea pig, I felt like. And and I just, each step, I didn't get the whole picture of what I needed to do, but like each step I just start getting information from like the divine. Okay, start eating this, like drink spring water, do V steams, meditate. I learned about Queen Afua. I would tell myself my womb is healed and so is my life. That was one of the mantras that I used. Yeah, so I just started getting introduced to so many different things, tinctures and herbs. And yeah, so that's when I was like, oh, wow, I'm super powerful. And I did my first mushroom trip around that time. Accidentally took 5 grams and went what I thought was like space or the bottom of the ocean or the womb. I'm not sure. It was somewhere really dark and warm and comfortable. Yeah, I was just in space, like, and I got the message that all I needed to do was be unconditional love, compassionate, and present with myself. And so for this whole trip was probably like 10 hours. I just kept asking the divine, so I don't have to do this? I don't have to do this? And they were like, no, you just have to be unconditional love, compassionate, and present. And it was just it felt like a grandmother. Like, it just felt like the most nurturing, safe, non-judgmental, patient presence that I had ever felt. And I used to look at the dark like as scary, but it was so comforting. So it's such a beautiful experience. And after I got done with that trip, I was like, oh, it's going to be easy. But no, it was a lot of unconditioning that I still have to do. Because especially as a Black woman, I know men go through this as well too, but you're not taught to treat yourself good or self-care. It's like always outward, do this for this person, do that. But it really starts at home. And so like my goal is always to be so full that I overflow so I can be good for my children, my home, my community, the world. So
yeah, that's so powerful that we turn inward and just slow down. We have the capacity to be healers for ourselves and healers for others. And it's so essential because there's a lot of talk about self-love in today's day and age. And sometimes people can be like, oh, like shopping spree, like we're going. And it can be nice to buy yourself something, but it's really not about anything material or anything outside of yourself. That's just a bonus, you know? It's just about the unconditional love that you allow yourself by witnessing all parts of yourself. And I know in my experience, a lot of the things that I reject in others or that bother me in others are the parts of myself that I haven't gotten comfortable with. So taking the time to, for instance, journal about my annoyances or anger and my other interactions. And then once I've externalized what my issues are and what this person's problem is and like what I would tell them about themselves, then I try to see where I'm acting that way, either in my current dynamics with people or in past relationships. Because a lot of times the universe will give us situations to feel the impact of that type of interaction. Because we weren't on the other end of it before, we were giving it out. So now you get to say, this is what that felt like. And there's a perfection in that because we all take turns giving and receiving all different types of energy. And sometimes you're offering forgiveness to somebody and sometimes you're the one someone is offering forgiveness to you. And that's a beautiful thing because one of the things we listen to in these Way of the Heart teachings is just that forgiveness is such a powerful tool. Like he says in the teachings that it literally takes 1,000 years off your soul's journey.
That was powerful when he said that.
He was like 1,000 years off your soul's journey just to soften your heart.
Yeah. The Ho'oponopono meditation, it's based from Hawaii, and it says, thank you, I love you, please forgive me, I am sorry. And it sounds just like so simple, those 4 phrases, but it's healed so much within me. And then when I do my research on it, it's just been super healing. And you just never know, like holding on to that, what it's really doing to you. Because I had no clue. I felt strong being like unforgiving and you're not going to mess with me. But it really was hurting me way more. But the biggest thing that I had to forgive, honestly, was myself. For even the people who did do things to me that was hard for me to forgive, like the weight that I carried from it, I had to forgive. And everything starts with me. Every time I'm doing some kind of healing, like when I was learning about twin flames, everything leads me back to myself. So it's like we create our own suffering And it's very empowering to know that, but it's also, what? Like, I do this, so I'm causing this, and how can you get yourself out of this? And I think in the lessons that we learned too, they might have said something on the lines of that us creating our own suffering, and like, we got into this, so we need something bigger than us to get us out instead of us trying to do it. So that's like when the ultimate act of the surrender and tapping into that unconditional love is like super powerful, because
And the humility to ask and say, I need some help.
yeah.
And I've been doing that recently because most of my relationships are harmonious in this part of my life experience. But then the relationships in which I have friction, if we have an argument, I've gotten better at not expressing my egoic sensibilities to them, because I'm like, I know that's not productive, but like, they may say something and then I'm like holding my tongue because I'm like, it's not going to be productive to say something. I was just talking about the humility to ask for support from the divine when you're stuck in an egoic mental paradigm of how you're viewing a situation. And I've gotten to the point where I understand the power of the word. So I may not snap back at somebody when they snap, but then I'll be holding that energy and then be judging them for saying it and be feeling like I'm superior for not expressing it, or continuing the argument in my mind. Well, I would have said this. And the power of thoughts is really important, because so many things everything is created from a thought. Everything's created from a thought, and then we amplify the thought with emotion. So if you're ruminating about something just over and over again, it's just very unhealthy. And I feel like those are the causes of dis-ease. It's like we continue to create this energy until it starts to form in the physical of something that needs to be released or let go of, or given the light of grace.
Yeah.
I know when I'm having those moments, like I'm learning now just more to surrender and to do breath work, do mantra, because when I'm doing those things, I can't at the same time be having this argument in my head. And other than that, it's just like praying and saying, divine, please remove these angry thoughts from my mind, because I know they're harmful. Like even just the thoughts, I'm just trying to purify every aspect of my being from the unloving expressions.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I had shared with you, we were having issues with a neighbor in our neighborhood, and I would just see them because they're right outside my house, and I just had these bad thoughts about this woman, like about her wig and all kinds of stuff. And my mind usually doesn't go there. My partner once had told me, he was like, you got to use your tools. You got to use your tools. Like, even when it's hard to do it, you have to use it. Like, I'm on this call every Sunday, like, embody that. And so I just remembered that. And I was like, okay, this is honestly how I feel. This is where I am. But I know that all there is love. So help me to see the God in this person, in this situation. Still was not there when I was doing it. I still felt the way, but I honored where I was because I needed to get it out. And then that week, I kept seeing cardinals on her house. And my grandmother transitioned in 2020, and that was like my earth angel. And so whenever I see cardinals, it always reminds me of my grandmother. And so it was 2 on there. And I was like, oh, my grandma didn't play about me. So I already know she's over there. Somebody in the ethers heard me. And so that gave me like, I felt soft. I felt like I was getting into more of a neutral place with it. And the next week, I literally had a daydream of my friends coming over and me telling them about it. And they're like, let's sage the neighborhood. And I'm like, that's a great idea. But I was like, first, let me sage myself, because I'm having these thoughts. And I also don't want to have this superior thought that I'm the one cleansing and making it better. We learned that in the letters too, about Jesus talking to God and God reminding Jesus that it's not Jesus that's doing this, is the Christ consciousness. So getting my ego out the way, that I'm going to like sage this neighborhood and make everybody more calm and peaceful. And then we sage the neighborhood, and that's like the end of the daydream. Literally the next day, they came to us like fixing what the issue was that I originally had with them. And I didn't even do anything on this physical realm. And I'm like, wow, like it is truly all infinite. It's all one. And that was just like a beautiful revelation. And I got it from our being consistent with Sundays, the call that you have put together. It's been life-changing for me.
It's been so life-changing for me too. It's just what you put in comes out, right? So if you eat asparagus, then your pee is going to smell like asparagus. And if you constantly put these Christ teachings in your mind, it's going to confront all the ways that you're acting that are not Christ. And there's only so many times I feel like you can continue to make choices that are not Christ-like before you're just like, what am I even doing? I'm causing all this constriction in my experience and other people's experience by constricting my heart. That's obviously what we're not here to do. That we're here to be givers and receivers of love. It's like so simple what life is actually about, and being conscious creators. And I feel like the reason why it takes a minute, and this is what you were speaking to about like being honest about where you're at, is I feel like the purpose of life is to be a conscious creator. And at higher realms, when non-physical realms, the manifestation happens very quickly. So if you have a thought, you manifest that thing. But on this realm, it takes more time and more energy being sent to something, which is actually a really good thing. Because if we were able to manifest things at the speed of thought, with our current level of maturity, like we would be calling in all sorts of crazy things, right? So it's like you have to work through things. And sometimes that means being honest about where you're at. And just being like, hey, I'm angry about this thing, or I feel upset about this thing, and what's the core of that? And even if I'm not able to let go of it now, like sometimes I'm not able to let go of the intensity of the emotion in the moment, but I know where I want to get to. So I can just say, okay, it's okay. This is where you're at right now. And we know that's not like the highest way to view the situation. So we can work on releasing that through different modalities. It's not something you're just like forcing, because then it wouldn't be authentic.
Yeah, for sure. I recently watched Inside Out 2. I love cartoons.
I just saw
and
it too.
And in the movie, it just reminded me so much of myself. Like I have to be mindful of movies that I watch, because I always go in it. I'm such an empath. I can feel everything that's going on, and I always relate it back to myself. But it was just so interesting, because a lot of times I wanted to be enjoy all the time, but that was me suppressing certain feelings, like back, like how she was just tossing all those memories that she didn't want to think back. And then it all comes up. It can come up through dis-ease in your body, disease, like the fibroids for me. And then I still had to deal with them. So I literally wrote a quote today saying, your triggers are pointing you towards that buried pain. So sometimes like we just don't want to deal with it, so we just put it down there. But all the emotions are valid. Like I do believe that enlightenment, love, peace, joy are the highest of the frequencies, but not to look at the other ones as bad, because they're just showing you something. And I think of even in the Bible, it says, peace be still. Like it can be like, okay, this thing is made me angry, but when we suppress it, it just gets louder and louder and louder. And it just is a reminder for me to be present and be honest with what I'm feeling. Like I realized that I wasn't honest with what I felt to myself a lot of the times. Yeah.
So I love that we're both on this, receiving these Christ codes and recognizing that Christ is a consciousness that many beings, including all of us, can tune into and be vessels for. So we're definitely aligned on that. What do you feel like are the biggest challenges to your highest expression of self at this time?
The biggest challenges for me at this moment is remembering how powerful and how when I come home to myself, that's when I am with God. I feel myself leave my body a lot, and when I'm like uncomfortable or when I'm thinking too much. And just staying in my body is something that I have to remember, and choosing love even when it's hard, Because like when it's someone close to you and they do things, like you take it so personal, or when somebody does something that you're like, I would never do that, and judging them and having this anger towards them, but still remembering that everything is God and everyone is God. So those things are things that I'm working to embody now. Yeah. What about you?
I think it's definitely around forgiveness and judgment, around the situation I was just describing. It just like being grateful for opportunities to practice forgiveness as opposed to being holier than thou. Because in the spiritual journey, I feel like there's a time when we become awakened, and then you go from operating in ego to operating in like spiritual ego. And really, you may be at different frequencies. That's real. But that just means that you have greater opportunity to serve and more responsibility to do so. Because the more you are granted access to, the more you are to be the embodiment of God, which is just pure love. And it's just like these teachings sometimes they can be like confusing because they're beyond logic and beyond the mind.
Yeah.
And it's just continuing to listen to them and allow them to become like energetically embedded in my being. And I feel like I'm doing it though. I know that I'm more compassionate and more patient with myself and others than I used to. I feel like I'm definitely on the path. Like I know what the path is. I have access to it. It gets reflected to me all the time. And it's just about practicing it, and it's a daily practice.
Yeah, for sure.
There were times in my life when I felt lost, and I don't feel lost now. I feel challenged at times, but not lost.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty significant difference.
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful to be a part of this community and like building with people that I feel like are on the same page.
Yeah.
And the main thing that I want to just share, and been saying it earlier, I say it all the time, is, Jesus isn't going to save you. We're not meant to be saved. We're meant to experience the godliness that lies within us as a seed and develop it into a full tree that gives fruit to everybody that we come in contact with.
Yeah.
So it's just, if you think about the journey to God as like a hike, right? Jesus isn't taking the hike for you and telling you about it. He's telling you about it, but only to encourage you to walk up the mountain yourself and then see the light. So it's not blasphemous to say that he's not the only child of God. We're all children of God, and we all have a responsibility to not just say, okay, I believe, that's all I have to do. It's no, you get to consciously choose to be Christ as well.
Yeah. And that's what I love too. That's why I appreciate this space. I grew up going to church. I can't say like I was like heavily into the church, but that was my relationship with Jesus. So when I left going to church and became more spiritual, I did my own thing. So our meetings are my version of church. And I like that it's interactive versus someone speaking at you. It can be a conversation, and yet we can still learn by listening to what the letters and the message of the Christ consciousness has given us. But it just makes me super grateful because now I have my own relationship with it. Jesus always resonated with me, but a lot of the other deities does. And I used to think that because I did one thing wrong, I could never reach that. And knowing that I already am that, and that's all that Jesus was saying. And then learning about Jesus more, that Jesus had a lot of the same qualities as me. They say like he never sinned and all these different things. I'm like, that counts me out. And I like certain parts of life that people can consider like bad, but learning that nothing is bad and your path is your path, but we're all still we have no choice but to get back to God, in my opinion. And that's just all that Jesus was saying, and not looking at Jesus as a man or a person that I need to follow, but like actually what he was saying and teaching about the Christ consciousness and love, which is the word that I guess would be best described as it. and implementing that into my life.
100%. We're all unique expressions of the divine, so we're all meant to express differently. It's not just one way of being. And all the different Christed beings that have existed throughout time carried a certain message for their time and their community and their culture. And there are some elements that are universal across all space and time, but then there's also some ones that are specific, right? So it's like, would Jesus be on social media if he was alive today? What kind of reels would Jesus be making? You know, like probably. Would he want to use what's available to amplify his message? I mean, he is. He's speaking through us in the moment, right? So ultimately, I don't think the truth is outside of you. It's not what we say. It's not in a book. Those things can resonate with the truth that you know is in your heart. And if it does, then that's true for you, because what's true for you and what is appropriate action for you to take in any given moment is different depending on where you're at in your journey. So it's safe to trust your own sense of self, and you can use other things as reflections and inspiration, but you also can have the courage to walk your own path.
Yeah. I like to say that I am the blueprint. I remember when 2020 happened, I was like, who's going to save us? Who's going to lead us? Because I don't believe in any of this stuff, but I don't know what to do. And everything in my life, when I'm like searching, it always brings me back to myself. Like I'm always like, I want to find the twin flame, understand that. I want to find the money. I want to find the leader of this century. And it all leads me back to me every single time. And when I can remember that, that saves me a lot of time in my journey.
Ashe. So what is one thing that you're very excited to pour your creative energy into?
Honestly, another thing that I want to share is like how we've been learning about desires and that desires are from God. So honestly, my desire is just to be a light, and not from an ego standpoint. Oh, I'm walking around and I'm just being so bright, but just letting God really move through me freely and being that vessel. That's my biggest goal. And however that comes across, I love doing the Soul Smile events. I love writing, but I'm just open to however that unfolds. I don't want to be attached to one thing, but I do want to move forward in whatever it is. But I'm just open wherever God is leading me, just being in that flow state, because flow state is just such a beautiful place for me to be. It really works for me when I'm present and I'm just trusting the path.
That's beautiful. And do you have any more flow state events planned for 2024?
Yes, I am. The baby is 2 months now, so I'm excited to get back going. I have so many different ideas for the Soul Smile Present. So stay tuned for that.
And where can people find more information about that?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm under Soul Smile, and the event page is under Soul Smile Presents. Yes, so we'll be sharing some new news, updates.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited to experience healing as curated by Keneecha. Because the beautiful thing about our community here in the A, in this conscious community, is everyone's doing the same thing, but in different ways. And it's cool to say, okay, what's the flavor of this person's experience and what are they expressing? And what in their story motivated this to happen? And the deeper we go into knowing ourselves, the deeper we can go into knowing each other.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to do, is experience.
For sure.
Experience and share.
For sure. I love that. Yeah.
It's an honor to walk this path back to full remembrance, full self-remembrance with you.
Yeah, it is so beautiful. And I don't know if you remember, even before we started in January, the calls, I think it was the Atlanta House Music Festival. It was some kind of house thing. And we were talking about Jesus, how I just turned 33. And now every Sunday, I've been consistent with this. I do not play about my Sundays at 11. So definitely tap in and join if you are available. Like I say, it's been life-changing for me. And I just appreciate you for showing up every Sunday in the way that you do. That's really a big deal, and I hope you know that.
Yeah, thank you. It's a gift for me to be able to study it with people and have these conversations and deepen, because the deeper you go into the path, the more you realize what else is there to do besides cultivate your Christ light and spread it. And when you do that, everything comes. Everything gets magnetized in a really magical way. It is service, but it's also the most fun thing you can do, because life just steps outside of your logical, oh, this comes after this, and if I do this, then I get this. It's just like God already knows the highest path for you and is ready to give it to you when you devote yourself to being a receiver of it.
Yeah.
So I know the further I get on the path, the more magical my life becomes, the deeper my connections get, the more inspiration I'm able to channel through. So it's like the momentum is going, like I'm going, I'm on the path, and I'm just excited to continue to share it. And yeah, we do it at Sundays, 11 a.m. Eastern. So if you feel inspired, then we'll put links to join in below this podcast, and also like on Instagram, Dharma Glow, you can tap in. It's totally free, and we would love to grow with you.
Yeah. It's always nice that we focus on one lesson a month to really dive deep into it versus like moving through it really fast, because it's a lot. Each time we're on the calls, we get a different message. I'm like, I listened to this, and I'll even listen to it between Sundays, and I'll hear something different. Is this the same? Or am I listening to lesson 6? Like, I don't think I heard this before.
It's definitely multidimensional.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the thing, the simplest messages can penetrate the deepest, because there's codes, there's different like energetic codes, and they interact with you based on where your consciousness is at and what you need to hear at that specific time. So it's very beautiful like that. I put them on YouTube, and I also put them on a podcast. So you don't have to come to our Sunday meetings to listen. I'll just put the links below. And if you feel inspired, you can check them out at your own pace. But they're meant to be studied one lesson per month. And there's 3 books with 12 lessons in each book. So it's intended to be a 3-year journey to really let it like saturate your being. So, you know, we invite you to take that journey as well.
For sure.
Sister, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah,
truly.
You're blessed up. Thank you for sharing your story, your healing, your light.
You're welcome. Yes. I love to share it. It's not for me to keep, so I'm always willing to share it.
All right. Well, we'll see you at the next Soul Smile event. We'll put that information below too. Thank you for tapping in.
Thank you.
One love.
Thank you. Peace.
All right. So we wrapped up, but then Keneecha had more insights about how this Christ journey is playing into her life. So we said, let's just turn the camera back on for a second. So what were you just expressing?
Yes. I had my son at 16, and so I had a view of how my life would be when he got to be 17 or 18. And I ended up meeting my partner, and the journey went in a different direction, which is beautiful. And what I realized during my pregnancy is that I felt sad at times, even though I was so grateful for just what was growing inside of me and to be able to share this with my partner. But I was really mourning who I was. I felt like it was a death, like I died in a certain way. And being reborn, so learning about Christ consciousness and his death, but really was not a death, it's rebirth, and because we are infinite beings and how we're always forever changing, but still being able to just appreciate where you are today and also where you were without holding on to either one, not being attached to who you were or who you are becoming, because it's infinite. It's always forever changing, and not being attached to storylines. I think sometimes we create these beautiful narratives for our future and get so attached to them, which is a beautiful thing to be able to dream, but dream and still be able to flow.
Dream and flow.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a mix of having a vision and taking action towards it, and also being open to the universal divine plan, which is bigger than you can even imagine. And you have to meet it, because you are supposed to receive your desire and go for it. You can't just sit around doing nothing and still accomplish. You have to expend energy. But when life throws you a curveball, it's a beautiful thing to be able to stay in that sense of gratitude and awe and say, okay, I thought it was going to go this way, but now it's looking like it's going to go this way. So I wonder how it's going to plan out. And that's a much more receptive and playful way to engage with life than, oh, things didn't go my way, so now I'm going to pout about it. Which is, I dealt with things in life that way for a long time. And even when I do that still, I'm able to shift out of it faster now, because everything has worked out. To this point, everything has worked out. So it's just deepening our trust with life, and that it's okay to surrender. And even if we experience disappointment or frustration, like, that's just a human emotion, and we can transcend those emotions after we process them.
For sure. I practice Qigong, and one of the things that a lot of the masters will share is like, I am the universe and the universe is within me. And the other day I was in the car, and it was like, everything I see is a mirror. So that's like a projection, like a screen. And so everything on the opposite end, I'm a projection of. And just knowing that infinite, and it's never ending. So like, sometimes I get to a certain space in life and I'm like, okay, I can breathe, and something else happens. And just learning that it's a forever journey, even when I'm out of this scenario, like when I was just having one child, or when the next phase of my life goes, like, it's infinite. It's not like a destination.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful realization. And one thing I realized about life in general is that they say the biggest fears of life are like public speaking and death. And in reality, there is no such thing as death. It's just a transition to another expression of consciousness. And what people are actually afraid of is the eternal life that they already have. We already have eternal life, which means at every moment, the choice that you're making in the present moment determines what happens next. You'll never get to just be like, I'm done. You're never done. We're never done. And what separates the masters from us is they make the same choice every time.
Yeah.
What do you think that choice is? If you're going to make one choice about how to interact with the situation, what do you think that choice is?
Yeah.
Write your answer in the comments.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah.
That might have been a hint.
Yes.
All right, so anything else to share?
Probably not until you cut off the camera. I guess it'll just have to be a part 2. Because we could go on and on.
There's always more time to have more conversations.
Yes,
so
for sure.
we'll see what happens. But thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
Peace.